Okay, in this session, I think we want to take what we've heard so far and kind of take it to the next step. I mean, Melinda, you were hoping that we would get some nice weather outside, and it looks to me like we have some blue sky. We have a fantastic blue sky out there today, which is a real treat in Seattle in November. Using that metaphor, I think we want to really think broadly about what we can do in this field. And I related that a year and a half ago, you made this statement, Melinda, about the importance of innovating in social and behavior change. And actually, when Melinda made that statement, there was a standing ovation spontaneously across the foundation. This was at an annual meeting. And I must say that there's behavior change going on within the foundation around behavior change. And you have really spearheaded that. How do you see it going forward in terms of our work in behavior change? How do you see this playing out across the foundation? And how do you see this linking to what we're really more known for, which is the technological innovations? How do you see the technological and the social behavior change interventions really coming together?
So I think one of the most important things to understand about the foundation is that what we care about at the end of the day is that we save that child's life, or that the mother can feed or educate that child, or the mother and the father. So for us, it's all about impact. Do people live more healthy and more productive lives? So when I talk about the foundation, you need to keep that in mind, that that's our goal. And even when I talk about the foundation, everything we do is in collaboration with so many thousands of partners around the world. So just keep that in mind in sense of any of the remarks I make about our sort of work. But to Gary's question about how these innovations come together, the social and the more technological, there really isn't anything we do inside the doors of the foundation or outside in the developing world. I'm going to leave U.S. education aside, which is another whole huge investment for us that also has huge social change, but I'm just going to talk about global health. There isn't a single thing that we do that doesn't have some component of it of change, of social change. So one of the biggest goals of the foundation right now is to eradicate polio. We're in that last piece of the mile. You know, we're 99% of the way there to eradicating polio around the world. We will never get there if we don't continue to convince mothers to allow their children to have drops put in their mouths. And we have several states in northern Nigeria where the mothers really are keeping their children inside. They don't want the vaccinators to come to their homes because for lots of different reasons, some apathy, some they're tired of it, some they think maybe they're mixed with fertilization drops. I mean, we know the messages that happen around vaccines in the United States, the myths that happen, and for good reason, right? I'm not going to put something in my child's arm or mouth that I don't think is going to make them more healthy. So when we talk about these social networks, even in the United States, the HPV vaccine rollout here has been very, very slow, right? Because women talk to their pediatricians about their daughters, they go talk to their women friends. I talk to my women friends. They ask me about, what do you think about the HPV vaccine? We have to keep that mindset about absolutely everything in health where we're trying to get a change. In malaria, you know, our golden moment is going to be when we get a vaccine. But it's not just a vaccine. All along the way, we have to deliver malarial medicines. We're delivering millions, 80 million bed nets around the world. You can deliver a bed net, you can get it all the way out to that person's home. And if they don't hang it up and sleep under it, it doesn't make a hill of beans difference. And we may have the best malarial bed net that has the greatest insecticide, lasts the longest, you know, and chops off the legs of mosquitoes. We actually have some of those in production. But if people don't sleep under them, it's not going to make any difference. And so all the great science that happens in the lab, and we work with phenomenal scientists around the world, if we can't at the end of the day get that family to adopt that tool, we fail. And we don't get that life-changing advance for people. And when we talk about social and cultural change, I think we always have to take it back to our mindset. I mean, if you think about my mother's generation, they didn't strap kids into car seats. I know what my brothers and I sat in, my sister, when, you know, we didn't know that, okay, in a car wreck, a child should be strapped into a child car seat. But you can think about the rollout of how that happened over time. Or there are pictures of Jackie Kennedy smoking, right, when she was pregnant. You know, the whole change that's happened around tobacco in the United States. We have to put that mindset on when you think about any health change or impact we're trying to get in the developing world, and think about what is the mindset that people come in with, and how do you help just take that, as you call it, the natural social network, and take those up. So to me, these are completely interlocked. I think there's a little bit of a myth about the foundation that we're all about science. Well, you have to say, first of all, where do Bill and I come from? We come from the computer science industry. We have a belief in science, in biotechnology science. But you have to go at what you're good at first. So we tried to get really good at vaccines and making sure we get vaccines that don't exist in the developing world, we get the prices down, we get the 20-year lag from when a vaccine came out in the US or the UK until it got to the developing world. We focused on what we were good at first, but believe me, there's this enormous belief that that both of us understand and the foundation understands today, that you can't get that life-saving technology out there without people adopting it, and we have to get really good at this next piece.
Great, thank you very much. And that's really the approach that Family Health is taking. I must say, trying to link our discovery with our product development work, with our model development, our model delivery work, and then what we're talking about here now in terms of achieving impact at scale. How do you disseminate that knowledge further? Nicholas, want to talk a little bit more about social networks. You convinced us all that these exist, that they're important, that they influence all of our lives. But you hinted at a couple aspects of these networks that could potentially be manipulated. You talked about the flow and you talked about the structure. What are some of the early hints and what are some of your thoughts on what are some of the methods whereby we could change those things and make social networks something that we can really harness for good?
I think I'm going to focus on what I think, in answer to that question, I think I'm going to focus on what I see as the research challenges, or what do we need to know before we can optimally make these things work. There is an extant literature. It's not enormous, but it's growing rapidly on how to exploit an understanding of networks for positive behavior change. There have been experiments that have been done where networks have been rewired. A lot of online work where, for instance, if you assemble people into networks using online tools, how can you foster smoking cessation, for example? A lot of work done by Tom Valenti here at USC. Not here, but nearby. No, not so far, anyway. On the West Coast. It's all the same over there. On mapping school networks and how do you target the sort of cool kids, how do you find them in the network and get them to adopt the behaviors, and how does that create change? But I think in response to your question, what I'd like to highlight is a couple things. First of all, after we figure out what are the networks like, in what ways are they relevant, how can we target them, we're going to need to have some scalable technologies whereby we can map the networks without all the expense of mapping them in elaborate ways that I've alluded to today. So we're going to have to find ways to do certain statistical tools, which I won't go into, on how we can very quickly get network information without mapping the whole network. These could be very simple things like asking people to nominate their friends. Actually, a technique we recently advanced, this sort of taking advantage of something called the friendship paradox. So it turns out, here's an interesting idea. It turns out if you have a population of people and you have, most of you will know this, if you vaccinate 96, if you have 1,000 people and you vaccinate 960 of them, you get herd immunity for measles. It's as if you vaccinated the whole population. You don't need to vaccinate the last 40. And if you vaccinate 300 of them, you get zip, right? Just the 300 are immune and no one else. Well, it turns out if you take 1,000 people, you pick 300 of them and you have them nominate their friends, and you vaccinate the same number of doses, the friends instead of the randoms, it's equal to having vaccinated 96% of the people. You get the same level of herd immunity using 300 doses of vaccine by having taken advantage of network information. Basically, you vaccinate the core. All the ones at the periphery don't have to be vaccinated. And then you can do that without mapping the whole network, just by asking people to nominate their friends. Also, many people in the developing world now have cell phones. There are ways that we and others have been looking at where you can take advantage of cell phone information to get network information. So you can scale these things once we figure out what's working. First point, how do you get the network? Second, I think that we have to realize that the network techniques won't work for everything. They're not a panacea. So I think we're going to need to acquire knowledge about what kind of interventions are most spread the best. And I'll give you an example of this. So think about your behavior when it comes to purchasing a tires for your car. Whether you buy tires for your car is not affected by whether your friends or neighbors have bought tires for their car. But now think about your behavior when it comes to the purchase of some cool electronic gadget. Here it is affected by whether your friends buy the gadget. So we'll have to understand which kinds of gadgets, which kinds of interventions are amenable to network influence even to begin with. And I think that will be another challenge intellectually. I am utterly convinced, as it's obvious to every one of you, that, that it will be possible to exploit these networks, which we're making for a reason, to advance pro-social public health and public policy objectives.
Great, thank you very much. And we've only got about 2 minutes left, Bill, and we'll be taking a break. Right at the end, you alluded to the corporate sector, the private sector, and the role that they can play. And you mentioned the UN summit and the non-communicable disease session. I attended that, and actually it was amazing that there was a lot of private sector involvement that I haven't seen there before. How do we further encourage that, and how do we particularly get the private sector to reach down to the bottom of the pyramid?
You know, Gary, I'm glad you were there, and I'm glad you saw that, because I think that was a really important milestone. One of the things we have to do, and there are a number of private sector people here today, and we're going to talk about this in our work group this afternoon. One of the things we have to do is really sit down with the private sector and understand what it is that they want to do. Much of the time, they want to tie base of the pyramid marketing or the kind of outreach Melinda was talking about. They want to tie this to profit. If they want to do that, in my view, and it can be done properly, that's good. That makes it sustainable. And sustainability is one of the keys that we have to deal with and that we have to wrestle with here. In other cases, it may not be so much profit, it may be to build a market. So for example, I think there may be a P&G person here. They are working on clean water in Africa, and the person who's heading that up doesn't have responsibility for profit. But what he does have is, I want to spread this technology, I want governments to associate it with P&G, we want to get some reputational enhancement out of it, and we want to build a healthy populace to which we can sell Pampers or Ivory soap or whatever. So understanding what they want to do and how we can work with them is important. But even before that, we need to get past this arm's length business, and we need to sit down together to deal with these issues. Now, not every company is going to be able to do everything we would like them to do. If you're selling sugared water, and we don't want to sell sugared water, we're going to have a discussion about this. But for the most part, there are ways, I think, that we can work together.
Great, thank you very much. I really want to thank our speakers. I think this has just been a fantastic session.